Hello there and welcome. I'm Ole Brygger, and if you're new here, I really hope I'll earn your subscription today. I am ready to put up a fight. Actually, I'm ready to put up a fight with this huge chunks of foam. I got them from a construction site where it was leftovers from something they cut off, and I'm going to build a fighting arena. So why don't we get started? Well, we have a lot of work in front of us. So first I lined up the two blocks of foam exactly 3 inches apart. And then we need a circle, and I found out a trash can were just perfect size for that. I just needed to make sure that it was right in the middle, and then I could draw around it and cut it on my Proxon. And these two half-moon shaped pieces of foam is actually perfect for future builds, like a couple of bridges, so I'm definitely gonna save those. A little sanding to smooth things out before we are going to draw in some bricks. Making a couple of dots as guides, so I can start drawing in some bricks. This blue foam is so soft, so I can actually draw in the bricks with a pencil without scorching it with an X-Acto knife first. This is actually a lot faster than making individual bricks. I also need some sewer drains, so I just took what I had, this is a glue stick, and made a curve. The rest of the bricks I could do by freehand. It still took some time to draw this in by freehand, but again, it is a lot faster than gluing in individual bricks. And I can always correct for some minor details. For instance, I used this piece of balsa wood as a measurement for some wooden posts that just will make this more interesting to look at. I'll use my Proxon to make the cutouts for the posts. And then I could draw in some more bricks. I used a full board of the white Army Painter XPS foam. This is for the arena's floor. I marked it up so I could lay out the arena floor and put in some details for the drains. I wanted to have a circle in the middle of the arena, and I just used what I had laying around. This is a bottle of activator. And then I could start laying out the grid for the floor. But this type of foam needs to be scorched with an X-Acto knife before I can use a pencil to smooth out the lines. I used my hobby knife to make some cutouts for the drain holes to the sewers. I also need to make some cutouts for the sewers, and for this I used my hot wire cutter. And laying out the grid for the top floor of the arena. To start out with the texture, I used a piece of sandpaper just to smooth everything out on the top floor and the ring floor. And this is Mr. Rock. I found him in my garden and he is very good at making some nice texture. It looks very random because I can use different sides of the rock to make some nice and bumpy holes. And Miss Rock is also from my garden. She has some softer curves and is very good for making the texture on the bricks. Now I can glue everything together with some hot glue and cut some strips to fill in the full width of the build. Now I just needed to trim down the outside edge of the arena and laying out some more brickwork all around the build. This is Montage, mixed in a 50-50 ratio with black paint and some water. I use this to seal up everything before I prime it. After it's been drying for a couple of hours, I use some Vallejo German Panzer Grey. This has a green tint to it and it's not totally black. After the primer has dried, I will dry brush with a mid-gray. Then I will use my homemade wash. This is some brown and black paint mixed with water and a tiny drop of dish soap to make things flow a bit better. Then I will dry brush again, but this time I will do it with a bit darker gray. This is the dungeon base color from the Game Master Dungeon and Cavern core sets from the Army Painter. To give everything a bit more dusty look, I use some pan pastels in some gray tones. To give it some more effect around the sewer drains, I use this dark skin wash. And some subterranean wash just to give it a bit more effective look. I also want some bars in front of the sewer drains, and for this I use some cotton sticks. I'll just punch through the foam here from the top and adjust it from the back. To make the floor in the arena, I will use this summer undergrowth from the army painter, and I will just brush on some basing glue and sprinkle it on. After it dried up, I thought it might look a bit too much, so I used a piece of sandpaper just to smooth things out. To give it a more dirty look, I used this pan pastel burnt umber, and it will at the same time also blend in the flocking and hide the glossy effect from some of the glue you can still see. For the wooden posts, I will use this piece of balsa wood. I will just cut up in 10 by 10 millimeter shape, roughen them up with a wire brush just to make the grains stand more out, give them some dark wood speed paint with my airbrush, and attach them with some basing glue. This is just ordinary PVA glue. And they will fit perfectly into the slots I made before. I'll also need some longer posts to make a port for the portcullis. The portcullis will be made out of some coffee stir sticks and some wooden Q-tips. I'll just cut it to size with my side cutter. After cutting it to size, I will make all the Q-tips pointy in both ends. And then it's just super gluing everything together. And then we have one portcullis. Now I just need to make one more. All the beams and posts will get some dark wood speed paint. And some rough iron for the portcullis. To give the portcullis some more effect, I use this dry rust from the army painter. And then it's just gluing it in with some PVA glue. I'm also gonna need some bridges between the two parts. And for this I use some 4x4mm wooden dowels and some coffee stir sticks, gluing it together with some super glue and painting it with the dark wood speed paint. I also need some winches to drive the chain for the portcullis, and for this I use a wooden dowel and some heavy-duty cardboard. This is for bookbinding. The winches won't have any function, they will just be a decorative thing, because my laser cutter is actually out of the commission for the winter at the moment. But I might make an upgrade later this year. I'll also use some coffee stir sticks to make some supports for the winches and a handle you can rotate it on. Everything is just super glued together, and after I've finished everything up, I popped out my jewelry box. I found these nice little diamonds and I will put them on the end just to make some more metal effect. These will be painted with the rough iron. I will also make some wheels for the cross beam to hold the chain above the portcullis. And then they got the same treatment with paint, the dark wood speed paint. And then I painted the diamonds with the rough iron effect from the army painter. And finally we need a podio. This is also made by the 4x4 dowels and some coffee stir sticks. And of course some dark wood speed paint. And my box of change is out. I will use the most heavy duty chain I have. And it is already so dark in the metal that it works perfectly and I don't need to paint it. But first I will attach the winches with some super glue. And the same thing with the wheel above the portcullis. The chain will also be attached with a drop of super glue, and I use some activator to just speed up the process. And then was just cutting off the chain and super gluing it onto the portcullis. Finally I have these jewelry hooks. I'll just open it up and attach a piece of chain to it. This is for decoration, and it could be maybe a dog or maybe a prisoner that just deserved to be hanging there. Touching up the silver hook with some rough iron from the army painter. And then we need some blood. I soaked an old brush with some glistering blood from the army painter and blew some air with my airbrush to make some blood stains. And with the rest of the paint on the brush, I made some bigger blood pools. And the final thing, I needed a fence, and I decided to use the chain and the chain hooks to make a chain all around the edge of the arena. And a nice thing with these chain hooks is that I don't need to glue it. The balsa wood is just so soft that I can press them in as needles. It is done. I think this build was insanely fun to do, and I'm not done yet. I'm actually going to build an expansion for it. I need some holding cells and some barracks, but that will be in another video. Thank you for watching this video to the end. I really appreciate you being here as always, and I hope to see you soon. Goodbye for now.